true love is manifested through loyalty, especially during hard times.
Ain't that right? He ain't lying.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Alpha and Omega Exponent, also known as AOE, where we share content to add value to your life in any way possible. My name is Parfait and I'm back with another story time. Anyways, the story time of today is one that you don't want to miss. But before I get started, today the World Cup final took place in Argentina versus France. It was the craziest and most amazing game I have ever seen. But anyways, I digress. Argentina won. Congratulations to them. Everybody in America is happy about Argentina winning, and I am happy as well. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started. So, a very long time ago, there was a man whose name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi. So Elimelech and Naomi were married, and they had two sons. One of the sons' names was Malon, and the other one was Chilion. So both sons also got married, and their wife's name, one of them was Orpah, and the other one's name was Ruth. So I hope you got this. We had Elimelech and Naomi got together, husband and wife, had two sons, Malon and Chilion, and those two sons married, and their two wives were Orpah and Ruth. So things were happening back in the day where there were famine and things like that. So they decided to move. So the whole family moved, and then they went to this new place. And in this new place, something horrible happened. What happened? Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, ended up dying. So after he passed away, the sons stepped in, Malon and Chilion, they stepped in and started taking care of the mother along with their wives, Ruth and Naomi and Orpah. And so 10 years later, another bad thing happened again. Oh no. The two sons, Malon and Chilion, passed away. And Naomi, their mother, was devastated. She was like, man, I lost my husband. Now I lost my two sons. What do I do? So she was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up and go back to my village and to go back to my people now that I lost my husband, I lost my sons. And she also told her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, she was like, okay, y'all can pick up and go back to your countries because I don't have any more sons to give you. And both daughters-in-law were like, nah, we ain't leaving you. We're not gonna leave you. We're gonna stay with you all the way. She was like, nah. Y'all need to go back to your countries. And Orpah was like, all right, since you said so. They were crying. Orpah was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up. Orpah kissed her goodbye, and Orpah left. But Ruth was a different person. Ruth was like, I'm not leaving you, Naomi. I'm gonna stay with you all the way. She was like, I'm gonna ride to die with you. And Naomi was like, nah, Ruth, you don't understand. Go back to your country. Ruth was like, nah. There's nothing you can say that's gonna make me leave you. I'm going back with you. Wherever you're going, I'm going. Ruth was loyal. Ruth was like, I ain't leaving. So she told Naomi, she was like, whatever you say, I'm not gonna listen to it. I'm gonna be loyal to you. And Naomi was like, all right. So Ruth and Naomi picked up and they went back to Naomi's countries, to her village. And so when they arrived there, everybody looked at Naomi, was like, oh, was this Naomi who had her husbands and two sons and they left and now she's back? And yeah, she was sad in that period, but hey, that's what she had to do. They went back to the place, to the village, and then they started living there. Life was hard at the time. And then Ruth took the initiative. Ruth was like, okay, listen, Naomi, life is hard, but I gotta get out and go out in these fields and try to go find something. We got to eat. We got to be able to find food for ourselves. And she took the initiative. She was like, let me go out in the field, go find food for us. And Naomi was like, yeah, you should do that. All right, go ahead. She put her blessing on her, and Ruth went out in the field. Now, as she went out in the field, something just happened. Ruth found herself in this field who was owned by this man named Boaz. And Boaz was this man who was worthy. And so, worthy, what does that mean? He was a righteous man, he was worthy, he had money, and he had a good heart too at the same time. So, as life as things took place, Ruth found herself in Boaz's field. And so after the people who were there were reaping, and then after the people were there were doing what they had to do, Ruth also came after them and tried to pick up, the leftovers so her and Naomi can have food. Now, as she was doing that, Boaz came back, and Boaz was going about his field, checking things out, and he was like, he saw a new girl there. He was like, oh, who is that? So Boaz came back, he called his boys, he called his man, he was like, hey, come here. He was like, who's that young woman over there? And his men were like, oh, you don't know? That's Ruth, man. That's the young lady you came back with, Naomi, man. She didn't want to leave her. She was stuck by her. She was loyal. And Boaz was like, okay, I see. And then Boaz was like, all right, y'all leave her alone. I got her. And so Boaz already put his perimeter. He told his boys, hey, take care of Ruth. I got her. Don't mess with her. And something happened where Boaz and Ruth met. And Boaz met Ruth, and Boaz told Ruth, and she was like, hey, I see you, picking things up on my field. You should stay around my field. You shouldn't go around and looking for things left and right. And Ruth was like, oh man, you're so nice. Why are you being so nice to me? And Boaz was like, no. I heard your story. I heard your loyalty to your mother-in-law and everything. And so that's very commendable. And Ruth was like, oh, thank you, appreciate it. And so, Boaz, he was doing that, but his intention was really, he wanted to keep Ruth in his field. So, you never know what can happen. Maybe they get together later on and live happily ever after. But anyways, so Ruth stayed around Boaz's field, and it was mealtime. And then Boaz came back again. He was like, hey, Ruth, you hungry? We got this meal prepared. Take a break, come have lunch with us. And Ruth was like, all right. So, hey, Boaz started putting in that work. It was like, okay. Boaz came, invited Ruth. Ruth also being a young lady, well trained, she came and had that meal with Boaz. And after that, she went back about her business. And then she went back home. And she spilled the tea to Naomi. She told Naomi everything that happened. It was like, oh, I went on this field and I met this nice, good man named Boaz. And, he told me to come back to his field and he invited me to lunch and everything. And Naomi was like, oh, Boaz. Oh, that's a relative of my husband, And Ruth was like, Naomi starting to put two and two together. She was like, okay. Boaz is a good man. He's worthy. Ruth, he's a loyal woman. She's worthy. Y'all got to come together. So I need to find a way. Naomi being the older woman, the wiser woman, she started to give some game to Ruth. She was like, okay, so this is what you got to do. In the evening, they're going to have this event happening. And, you got to get yourself ready. Take that shower, put on that perfume, that oil and everything, get yourself ready and go to that event. The men's are going to be there, but, this is what you got to do when you get there. After they eat and after they have their drink, they're going to be nice and happy. And so just go there and, sit there by Boaz's feet. And, Ruth did everything that Naomi told her to do. She took a shower, got herself ready, put that perfume, them oil. You know, back in the day they had them good scent oil. And so she did everything, went to the event, and at the event, Boaz was there after everybody ate and drank. Boaz sat there, fell asleep. Ruth also came there, sat by him, and she also laid by, him and fell asleep. Now, at midnight, Boaz woke up and he saw Ruth laying by his feet, and he was like, "Who are you?" And Ruth was like, "Oh, I'm Ruth." And Boaz was like, "Oh, you are Ruth." And Ruth was like, "Spread your wings, for you are a redeemer." Uh-oh, uh-oh. Hey, that's that game from Naomi. And Boaz was like, "Okay, I got you. I got you." And Boaz was like, "I appreciate your kindness, because, you could have gone with any, all of these young men, but, you chose me, and I'm choosing you, so I got you." So Boaz went and took Ruth as his wife, and they had a son whose name was Obed, and they lived happily ever after, as you know. That's the story of today, but there's some key lessons in this story. And the first lesson here is first to be determined. Whatever you're doing, whatever we're doing, especially as young people, we got to be determined. When we say we're going to do something, we got to be determined. When we know where our heart is, we got to be determined, especially about our choices, our decision, our thinking. And as we heard in the story, Ruth was determined to stay with Naomi no matter what. And that was the good foundation. Being determined is a good foundation when we're taking action and when we want to deal with people and to stay with them. The second one is loyalty. Ruth remained loyal to her mother-in-law Naomi. And for that, she was rewarded because Naomi saw that loyalty that Ruth had. And when she heard that, okay, Ruth met her, the relative of her husband, Boaz, Naomi was like, okay, Ruth is a loyal woman, so I'm going to put this plan together to find a way for Ruth to enjoy the happiness of, hopefully being Boaz's wife. So being loyal is important. And as people, it's important to know that true love is manifested through loyalty, especially during hard times. The third lesson is to take good initiatives. As we heard in the story, when they went back to Naomi's village, Ruth took the initiative to go find food in the field, and it just happened for her to, went to the field of Boaz. And so taking good initiative is important. And when we take good initiative, we will find favor in the eyes of good people. And so we can't just sit in one place and say everything is going to come to us. No. Especially as young people, we got to think, we got to take good initiative and take action out of those initiatives. The final advice of this story time is to take advice from people who has good intention and from people who has good experiences of the things that we need to do. As we heard in this story, Ruth took the advice from Naomi because Naomi was a wise woman. Naomi knew what needed to be done for Ruth and Boaz to basically, come together and agree so they can move forward and, get to the point of marriage and everything. And so, and Ruth listened too. So, not just we take good advice, but we got to be able to listen to those advice and pair to the previous lessons to take actions from the advice that we hear. If you want to be successful, take advice from people who are successful in the things that you want to do. And that's it, guys. I hope that this story added value to your life. I'll see you next time in the next story time.